If you're watching this video, I am pretty sure that at some point you have looked at one of those fancy, hyper-expensive Google offices and asked yourself, why bother? Why does Google spend all this money on an office location? What is the real business value of Workspace Environment? And this is a legit business question because it's not just Google doing this. Meta does it, LinkedIn does it, and so do it all the tech and IT and consulting companies in your area. In this video, we will explain why. What are the reasons Workspace Environment works as a business strategy in all industries and how it will impact your company's revenue. And I know what you're thinking. Google is doing it, Facebook is doing it, but why should I? And it makes perfect sense. I would ask myself that because you cannot make a business decision based on what other people are doing. There has to be data. And I am about to provide you with the data as to why this is a good business decision and a great strategy to drive more revenue to your company. The main reason to invest in Workspace Environment is company culture. According to the Harvard Business Review, companies with a good culture outperform companies with a weak culture by 400%. That's 4 times more revenue just because of your culture. And this is not a new discovery. Already in 2002, Barron and Hannon surveyed 200 companies in Silicon Valley, and what they found out was quite surprising. Turns out that companies who made sure that their employees shared strong values and developed strong emotional bonds were 3 times more likely to achieve IPO and were way more likely to survive compared to all the others. So the question becomes, how do you achieve that? How do you develop a strong company culture and how do you use Workspace Environment to drive more revenue? Let's get into one of the 3 key ingredients you need to create a strong culture. And no, it's not talent, it's not degrees, it's belonging. A company is an ecosystem. Actually, my favorite metaphor is that a company is like a brain. The units, departments, and systems inside your company are the neurons. Meanwhile, the employees, your human capital, they are the synapses. They connect the neurons to each other and make sure that everything works properly. If the connection between your people fails, then your company starts to fail. Usually, when this connection fails, employees start performing worse, conflict arises, and people start leaving your company faster than you can train new ones to replace them. And it might not convince you right now, but I'm about to convince you of the fact that if you want to avoid this, the key is to create a sense of safety and belonging. I won't be getting into all things belonging in this video because we need to keep our focus, but remember this. Working spaces like the ones you see at Google or Deloitte are open for a reason. They foster collaboration. And to further promote that, some companies implement weekly, randomized sitting place assignment so that employees from different departments have a chance to interact with each other. Collaborative working environments are essential to company culture because they give people the chance to randomly connect with each other, creating an information exchange that ultimately favors innovation and group thinking. Humans are social creatures. Our brains are constantly scanning our environment looking for threats. And one of the threats our brain fears the most is the threat of being excluded from a group. Think about it. Have you ever been in or heard of one of those meetings where everybody is afraid to express their own opinion and nobody speaks because the manager is maybe a little bit too strict and a little bit too unfriendly? That's what I'm talking about. In those cases, there is a lack of safety and belonging. Your employees will feel like they could be excluded from the group at any moment. And the stakes are high because to get excluded from the working group at any moment means that you could lose your livelihood. It means that you are not able to put food on the table anymore. Now, just having a working space that's open and that's nice will not fix terrible management, but it will help your employees meet each other, interact more often, and exchange information. And this is quite important. So bear with me because I am about to show you a great study. Before we get there though, I need to show you how there are 5 key metrics by which you can predict employee performance. The first one is belonging, meaning that everybody speaks in similar proportions. The second one is eye contact, meaning that people are willing to communicate in a present and engaged manner. And the third one is equity. It's the opposite of the example we saw before. Equity is where people communicate with each other and not just with the manager. And as we approach the end of the list of 5 key metrics that allow us to predict employee performance, we have branching. Branching happens when people feel safe enough to have side conversations within a group. And finally, we have reporting. Reporting happens when people go outside of their team, get information, and report back to their team. And as you can see, out of these 5 indicators, 3 we can trace back to Workspace Environment: equity, eye contact, and reporting. And if you need more proof and more data, here's another study with results that will surprise you. During the Cold War, Professor Thomas Allen tried to find out what made some engineering projects a success and what made other engineering projects a complete failure. And most people would expect to find the answer in team composition. Maybe it was the team with the most PhDs, the team with the most awards, the team with the highest IQ, but it wasn't. Allen found something entirely different. He found out that the main driver of project success is chemistry. And no, I'm not talking about Walter White in a lab cooking meth. What I'm talking about is communication. Allen found out that a successful team had something called clusters of high communicators. These clusters were teams of people driven by chemistry who were able to solve complex issues faster than any other group. And so the next question for Allen was, how do you create a cluster of high communicators? And the answer is the topic of this video. The answer is Workspace Environment. Allen discovered that the main reason behind why these people communicated so well was the distance between their desks. The less distance there was between the desks, the more they would communicate between each other. And so what is the ideal distance? According to Allen, the ideal distance is under 8 meters or 26 feet. However, Allen also found that communication increases dramatically under 6 meters or 19 feet. This phenomenon is known as the Allen curve. And this makes sense, right? I mean, think about how traditional jobs are depicted in popular culture. It just takes somebody mentioning the word cubicle for you to think about gray, boring environments where isolated people spend their entire day under neon lights staring at a blue screen. And we even saw the Barbie movie make fun of that. Remember the scene where Margot Robbie is running away from the Mattel employees in that boring gray building full of boring gray cubicles? That's a great example of how people see office culture. And so, it turns out that the key feature of those environments is isolation, lack of communication, lack of purpose, lack of passion, lack of safety. And lack of safety comes because there is fear of punishment. In an environment where there is fear of punishment, you will never be able to establish a great culture, and don't even think about establishing a culture in which people thrive and are able to innovate and bring your company more money. And so let's summarize all of it to give a final answer to the question, how can you use Workspace Environment as a viable business strategy to drive more revenue into your company and to make your employees happier and more productive? As we saw, corporate culture has been proven to drive up to 400% revenue increases. And if you watched this video all the way through here, I'm going to give you a special piece of information. According to some authors, the net income increase that you can attribute to company culture is actually over 700%. I just didn't include that at the beginning of the video because there is less data to back it up. We also found out that a key element to culture is interaction. If you get people to interact more and more with each other while having a sense of safety and belonging, you will see them be more productive, more motivated, and solve problems faster, which ultimately will be all for the full benefit of your company. And the key to achieve this through Workspace Environment is to allow people to have open spaces, to run into each other, to exchange information, to mix up with other teams. And of course, there is more to culture than just an office. But if you make sure that your people thrive and that they can do it in the right environment, then you will be on your way to transform your company from what it is today to an organization that can generate 3 or 5 times more revenue. And if you watch all the video, I want to thank you. My name is Sebastián Hidalgo. I am a strategy consultant and your go-to person to increase your company's revenue by finding your competitive advantage and maximizing the results you get out of your culture. Also, by the way, don't forget to subscribe, turn notifications on because I will be releasing more videos like this and I guarantee that you don't want to miss them.